Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Scenes, where we peel back the curtain to discover how Vidyard customers are using Vidyard and video to accelerate their business and make more human connections. My name is Olivia. I'm a media specialist at Vidyard, and I will be your host for today. Today, I get the opportunity to chat with the Regional VP of Sales at Leonardo247, Conor Hassett. Conor is an experienced sales guru and is also a finalist for the 2021 Video and Business Awards for the Visual Seller. So let's get Conor on here. Warm welcome. Good
Hey, Olivia.
morning. How are you
Morning.
doing?
I'm
Morning
good.
to
Thanks for
us.
having me. Yeah, afternoon to some.
Exactly. Happy to have you on here. We are so excited to dive in. Before we get there, just wanted to remind everyone that's tuning in that they can participate in the discussion and add comments to the live feed, and we will pop them on as they come. Ready to rock?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So to start off, tell me more about Leonardo247. What does your business do? What do your customers love most about working with you?
Yeah, so Leonardo provides operations and maintenance software for the real estate industry, primarily multifamily. So think apartment complexes from high rise to garden style. We do a little bit of student and commercial real estate as well, office buildings, affordable, but primarily your traditional multifamily. So if anyone here has ever lived in an apartment complex, there's an incredible amount of work that needs to happen on a daily basis to make sure that those apartments are safe and that residents are having a great experience. So things like if you have a gym or a pool, is the gym equipment working? Is it sanitary? It's not going to snap and fall on anybody, or that the pH levels in the pool are regulated. The lighting inspections are getting done. Your water's not going to turn off. There's a ton of inspections and operational checks that need to happen. And traditionally, that's been done, believe it or not, in pen and paper, where they go out to the pool and they're saying, "What's the pH level today? Is that within the accepted range? Do we need to file a service request for a resident that their garbage disposal isn't working?" So traditionally, that's been done on pen and paper. Some organizations have stepped into the 21st century with Excel spreadsheets and PDFs, but even still, that requires a lot of photos being attached and scanning and sending an email. And so Leo takes all of that and centrally houses everything ops and maintenance for those multifamily operators into an app and a dashboard view. So our partners love using us. One, it gets rid of their emails and their Excel spreadsheets and the amount of admin work that they need to do. But also from a risk mitigation standpoint, it protects them from lawsuits and insurance claims if someone twists an ankle and they can show that they've done the right lighting inspection. It's a huge risk mitigation tool for them.
Not to mention filing cabinets upon filing cabinets. That
Yeah.
Yikes. So then when it came to using video, where did it start for you? Why did Leonardo247 start there?
Yeah, for me personally, it actually started at a previous company, and it was primarily through prospecting. At the time, I was in an SDR role, and as any salesperson knows, competition in people's inbox is tougher than ever. And so, trying to break through that noise of getting people to take an interest in your product or your service is really difficult. So, for me, it started in a prospecting point of view. Adding this into things like social media, obviously, calling and emailing is an established path for sales professionals, but having another lever to pull and trying to generate interest in your service or try to educate the market on what it is that you do. At Leo, we've now expanded that past prospecting and top of the funnel. We use this a lot for companies that are months into the sales cycle, particularly when you're talking about enterprise organizations. Our team is focused on companies that are managing over billions of dollars in multifamily assets. And so there's a lot of teams that need to get involved. And so coordinating between 3, 4, 5 departments, each with, a handful of executives that need to be brought into the decision making. It's been really effective for us to coordinate all of those meetings and keep everyone informed. And we're even looking now at how do we build this into our training internally, identifying standard operating procedures or best practices for our sales team, or even layering this into implementation and account management. How can we use video to bring customers up to speed faster or to engage them even once they've been with us for a year or so? But for me, it really started with prospecting and trying to break through the noise within the market.
And it's a great tool to use to do so. I'd love to dive into those use cases a little bit more. So you're using video externally, internally as a team to communicate sales. Do you mind elaborating a bit on those use cases?
Yeah, one of the ones that we actually just talked about on an all hands meeting. I'll start with internal. Is on implementation and account management, right? So there are some processes that are standard across our customer set, right? Maybe they're using another piece of technology that we integrate with. Well, we know that we're going to have to train their teams on here's how the two systems talk and here's how it's going to enable your teams on site. So that's something that internally we can create videos around and then share them during the implementation process to actually speed up from a signed agreement to actually going live with product. So that's something that we're looking at with existing customers. On the prospecting side, it's constantly creating persona based videos. Right, so maybe something happens in the industry, and we decide that heads of risk, chief risk officers in the multifamily industry are going to connect with these 2 3 points that are happening. Right, a great example of that is turnover right now is really high in the multifamily industry. On site, you're losing about 40% of your team members year over year. It's really difficult to have a positive resident experience when almost half your team is leaving, particularly when they're walking out the door with all of that information on how to perform this inspection or how this piece of equipment on site works. Um, and so tying into, we can help reduce turnover, which is something that's really top of mind that's happening in a broader market. We can create persona or topic based videos that we then distribute to the market to generate more interest and get them educated and interested in Leonardo.
Lisa's wondering if you found it easy to adopt video into those different use cases. And if so, what were the hurdles in that?
Yeah, I didn't particularly see any difference in adopting it, say in like implementation versus sales versus account management. I think the challenge has been if somebody's new to video, and I would 100% put myself in this bucket of a few years ago, is that it can feel kind of daunting, and a lot of times people get tense on video, or they think it needs to be overly produced, which I know we'll likely get into later. Um, so I don't think that's necessarily a department or a use case specific. I think that's more individual, and that's certainly been a holdup. Is how do you get enough reps to feel comfortable on camera and get teams to adopt?
Definitely. And we will dive into that a little bit more later on. Let's dive into the more logistical end of things. What Vidyard tool do you use most often when recording your videos?
I use daily the SalesLoft integration and the Chrome integration. I prefer. I like a lot of times to show our product, right? So if I've had, I guess it depends on where you are in the funnel. But let's say we've had a conversation. They're top of funnel. They've had a high level phone call through a discovery call, or maybe we're moving on to the demo stage. Being able to pull up our products on a desktop view and actually record my screen through the Chrome extension, something that I rely on heavily, and then integrating that through Outlook or through SalesLoft, which kind of talk to each other. It doesn't matter where I can send it through Outlook or through SalesLoft, and it integrates on both ends. So being able to track opens and clicks and send that right from my email client. So Chrome, Outlook, and SalesLoft are the main three that I'm using.
Going off of what you just said, how are you leveraging Vidyard Analytics?
I would say in two areas. So one, as a personally as a rep, I use it as a benchmark, essentially to gauge interest and to forecast. Right, so I can look at if I send a video to two deals that I'm working on, and I want to coordinate between a chief technical officer and their head of operations, right? And so maybe I've got multiple personas, and I want to keep them in the loop with what I'm talking to the other about. And on one of those deals, I see that those videos are being opened 3 4 5 times, and they're watching at least 75% of the video, or maybe multiple team members. Maybe I'm sending it to an entire ops team that has a VP, a chief operating officer, etc. If I'm seeing that they're all viewing the videos, well, that tells me one thing on how much I can forecast, or to what probability I can forecast that closing. Whereas on the other end, if it wasn't opened, if it wasn't viewed, if they dropped off at about 25%. So I use it as an internal benchmarking tool for how interested or engaged is a prospect and how likely is that to close. In a broader sense, I've also experimented with some A/B testing. So let's say I put together a persona-based video that I know chief operating officers respond really well to these 2 or 3 bullet points that we can address. Maybe in one of the videos, and I can even power this through a sales automation tool like SalesLoft. So maybe I know I want to send this video out, but in one of them, I record it, and not to overcomplicate this, but I record it sort of in the order of 1, 2, 3. And the second one, maybe I change up the order to be 1, 3, 2, right? And those being kind of different value props that we can bring based on where attention is essentially dropping off. I can kind of back into which of those 3 points are most compelling, right? If I change up which one is first, is there a significant drop off in essentially their attention, and therefore communicating the value of our product? That's something that we've experimented with. So actually within a video, playing around with when you address certain things gives us a good indicator of interest. But on a day-to-day, it's mostly about how interested or engaged is someone, and therefore how likely are they to close within quarter.
Yeah, it's great because you have that in-depth insight onto someone's attention span while they're intaking exactly what it is that you're trying to communicate. Those are really cool tests that you're running.
hmm
Interesting to hear. What type of success have you seen from using video?
Yeah, I personally don't. I mean, it's become such an integral part of my process. I can't imagine not using it. At this point, I've been leveraging video for a few years. I think there's two measurables that I saw. I pulled some results over the last 2 quarters. One, we've talked about prospecting and top of funnel. I saw a 50% increase in new opportunities created within quarter. And depending on what team you're at, right, you might have a great marketing department that's driving inbound leads. You might have a developed SDR program, but every sales professional, I think, would love more leads and is dedicating some portion of their time to prospecting. So even just filling top of funnel by 50% was pretty impactful for me. And then I saw roughly a 10% increase in our close rates. And this is arguably now where I use video more. I know we've touched a little bit on prospecting and generating net new opportunities, but really for me, particularly on the enterprise side, as we get further down the funnel, as there's multiple teams involved, being able to coordinate between all of those groups. I even use some call recording software, for example. So maybe I do an hour-long demo with the technical team, and I want to go back to the COO and just give them a quick summary. Well, traditionally, I did that through email. But now, if I have a call recording software, I can actually clip, hey, here's the 2-minute clip where your IT team got really fired up about, oh, you mean it talks to this system and we can do this? Wow, that's incredible. Well, I can clip that, pull it up on my desktop, record myself in Vidyard, and say, hey, just wanted to keep you in the loop. We had this conversation. Here's the clip. Watch it. I'll give you some extra context. Instead of just delivering that in a bulleted email, I'll deliver that in our late stage deals. And so that actually increased my close rate by 10% in the last roughly 2 quarters.
Wow. Wow. To quickly jump to the previous point, we have a question about when providing those 3 key points in your video, are you talking about it, or are you also showing something like a presentation? So you're talking about adding easily digestible clips from recordings in these specific videos. Yeah, how exactly are you presenting?
Yeah, it's a good point. I do all three. So, and by all three, I mean, sometimes I might even, this is a common one that I do from a prospecting point of view, right? So I might actually go to their website, pull up one of their assets, one of their apartment complexes. They take incredible pictures when they market apartment buildings, obviously. And so I might actually pull up one of their apartments, and maybe they have a picture of a pool as an amenity. And I might record myself with the little, video in the bottom left. I almost always show my face. So I might have one of their properties pulled up and say, "Hey, I saw you have a pool. This is an incredible property. I know the pool inspection is probably a pain. You're probably doing it in pen and paper. Let's talk about how we can bring that into our app." Right. So that's an example of showing something that is personal to them. I've seen some folks even bring up someone's LinkedIn and share that. I don't do that a ton, but if you show someone their own face, I'm sure they're likely to click on it. So that's an example of kind of showing my screen. I've also showed our desktop or our mobile app version where I'm showing something on our product. And then there's plenty of times where I just record just myself, right? Maybe I'm running an email automation cadence and I saw that they've been interacting with an article that I sent them. I might just follow up with a video of myself saying, "Hey, I sent you this article. Here's 30 to 60 seconds on what we do." So I leverage all three. I haven't gotten as granular as A/B testing, like if it's just me, like we are now, in my face versus showing our product. What tends to drive more engagement? So I leverage all three.
And then when you're cutting some of those call recordings, curious to know what audio clip software it is that you're using.
When I'm taking recordings of live demo.
Yes, and then
Yeah.
adding them back into the video.
Yeah, so we have SalesLoft at my organization, and they now have a tool that I don't think was an add-on. It's called Conversational Intelligence, where it basically just like when I go on, I think it just says Leonardo247 has also joined the call. It just joins a Zoom call as a third party, and it records everything. It takes a video recording. It gives you some speech to text translation. So maybe I can go back in there and search like price or implementation, and it might pull up that conversation. But it's really, I'm using it more for just it records the hour-long demo, and then I can go in, pull it up on my desktop, hit play, and then record with Vidyard, and then go into Vidyard and clip, and make it a minute or a 2 minute video.
Amazing. Thank you for those tips and tricks.
Hmm.
Um, let's talk a little bit about your exciting finish at the Video and Business Awards. You were a finalist in the Visual Seller category. Can you tell us a little bit about your submission and how it came to be?
Yeah, so this was actually a perfect example of using a clip. So this was a competitive deal. One of our direct competitors, this prospect had inbounded through our website, had heard that we do some things maybe slightly different, but they had been with our competitor for about 3 years. And so it was a difficult sale to try to get them to uproot. And one of the things that they were most concerned about is, can we replicate the reporting? Right? We get like the functionality of your product and how some things are different, some of the value that you can bring that we're not currently getting, but we really don't want to lose our reporting functionality. And we think that this company that we're already with does a great job. So we actually had later in the cycle, with one of our project sponsors there, we had like an hour-long call of going through their current system's reporting functionality, and then kind of duplicating that or bringing that up live in our platform, showing like, okay, these are the 10, 12 reports you're getting weekly. Here's how it looks in our system. Might be a little bit different, but functionally we can accomplish that. So that was a great conversation. At the end of that, this is one where ultimately our executive sponsor wasn't on the call, the decision maker. They had sort of passed us off to a group that was more involved in this. And so I actually took, several 1 or 2 minute video clips of that conversation and sent it back. Like, hey, we walked through these 12 reports. These are the three that they really care about. Here's the 2 minute clip on each one of these. You can hear from your team yourself on their reaction. Like, oh yeah, that looks exactly the same, or that's actually better. Don't take my word for it. I'll clip you and send you the videos. And so that was the submission. We ended up winning that deal, which was a big deal for us. But I don't see a world in which we would have got that without video.
And I love the integration of the conversation into the video because it's easily digestible and
Hmm.
it's personal. You said, don't just take my word for it. Listen to the positive feedback that we received in this meeting. I love
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. We're going to dive into a little bit more of the performance and advice element of video. Can you offer some advice into uh, teams that are struggling to get started with video? What advice would you share with them?
Yeah, um, I think it's just reps. I think the first, if I can think back to the first video I did, I think I probably booked an hour or two on my calendar and got like two videos out, because you get nervous on camera and you start trying to read bullet points and you get really stiff. And I think that's a pretty common experience that I've seen for reps that are new on video. So I think that there's a certain level of just getting reps out. I used to just block maybe like an hour a day and just try to get as many videos as I possibly could. But I know we previously talked about this. In my opinion, I don't think the production bar is very high. Right. I don't think the value of video is that you're getting some super polished, really like tight, put together marketing video, right? I think there's a place for that, right? If you're gonna bring this into the marketing team, or as I mentioned earlier, some of our implementation things, if that's gonna go to every client, sure, it makes sense to have a higher value camera or higher production value camera or lighting, or maybe get into all of that. But I think my biggest advice is, I think it's the authenticity that communicates well through video. I think it's the fact that they're seeing you, right? I mean, every salesperson knows that if you go in person on a potential deal, the likelihood of closing that deal goes up. Well, why is that? People like the face-to-face connection. It's helping build the relationship. And so just seeing your face, it doesn't need to be overly polished. often will say like or lose my train of thought and just call it out and make a joke of it. And I don't think it needs to be as polished or put together as most people think. And I think when you get enough reps and you understand that, it makes it much more time efficient to crank out, several videos per day.
Well, Phil, I hope that answers your question for you. I completely agree. Yeah, and the little mistakes along the way, that's what humanizes the entire experience and helps build that human connection. I completely agree. It doesn't need to be. Lisa has put it quite lovely.
Yeah,
Authenticity over production value. Thank you, Lisa.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, on a personal level, I do. I mean, I'm in my home office. I do a ton of videos from here. This is not a studio. I don't think the production quality is that crazy. And we also talked about a story at my previous company. We were in the restaurant industry, and I was trying to break into McDonald's, which is obviously a massive account. At the time, we were in DC in a co-working small office, but we had a shared conference room, and a lot of times I would do videos from the conference room. And on one of them to McDonald's, I was recording. We were on the second floor. It's all glass behind me, and a car rear-ended another car. There was a stoplight right in front of our office, and so you you actually witnessed a car crash on a Vidyard. And I actually got a response to that email. I ended up sending it. I think I said something like, "You might hate this video, but at the very least, skip to the 35-second mark to see a really funny reaction." Because I kind of turned around and was like, "Wow, okay." I kept on with the video. I sent it to him. We ended up getting he ended up passing me off to somebody. It worked. My advice there is not to be gimmicky or try to arrange those types of things, but clearly, if that got a response and it got a laugh out of someone who probably gets 100+ emails a day from vendors, I think that's a proof point that it doesn't need to be overly polished. It's not about the production value. I think it's about the authenticity and the message.
100%. You all heard it here first. No coordinating
Yeah.
any car crashes, please.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, do you recall what your email subject line was for that?
I don't. I have tried to find that video. I don't have access to the old email account anymore. I don't. I wish I did. I remember calling it out in the body, being like, "You might hate this video, but go to this mark to see something funny." I don't. I don't remember. I don't know if I referenced it in the subject line. I probably did, but no, unfortunately, I don't remember.
Good for you though for keeping the show going on that. I might have panicked and not been able to bounce back.
Yeah.
Um, in terms of your own personal preparation, what do you do before you record a video? Is there any prep done?
It is what are the 2 to 3 things I wanna hit on, and then what's gonna be my closing ask. I think if I don't go in with, like, a call to action at the end, a lot of times it tends to drag out, like, that could have been a 60-second video, but I didn't really have my closing figured out. That's really the only prep I go in, like, what's my call to action? What do I wanna ask them to do? And then outside of that, I have broad strokes. I find that I know Vidyard has a great tool to put in notes or to put in those bullets. I found for me personally, if I put those in there, I try to stick to them. I'm too rigid in trying to stick to the flow. So I know I have 2 to 3 things that I want to touch on. I know I want to keep my eye on the clock because I typically try to keep it less than a minute, particularly if it's prospecting. If it were longer in the funnel, I think you've probably earned a 2 to 3 minute update. But I'm looking at the clock for 60 seconds. I'm looking at what are the 2 to 3 points I want to get and what's my last 5 to 10 seconds to close out. Other than that, I'm pretty fluid in how I approach it. And that goes back to just, I think it's just about being natural and pretending like you're having a conversation. I wouldn't go into this conversation with you and like, this is the exact script I want to write out. Right. I think the conversation will flow. And so that's generally been my process.
You definitely feel it. If there is a script, you can really, as an
Yeah.
audience, as a someone participating, you feel that rigidness. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about it. Are you adding a physical CTA at the end of these videos, or at any point, or are you just iterating the
I
CTA?
I am now. Historically, I would say I haven't used those to their full capability. So I am playing around with that now. Maybe it's a link to a calendar is something that makes a lot of sense to me, particularly from a prospecting point of view. If I'm referencing an article or something, dropping that in. So, yes, I am leveraging that more. I think I'm in the early stages of that. Like, when does it make more sense, in the middle, the end, or at the beginning? That's something that I'm also A/B testing, right? Like when we talked about when do you actually order the points that you're making versus when to drop in a call to action. So I have, but 90% of my videos to date um, have just been myself talking through call to actions.
We've talked about quality, low production quality, but high quality content.
Mhm.
Let's bounce over to quantity. Francis is curious to know how many videos you say you would create when you're getting started. So let's say you have that 1 hour chunk blocked off.
Mhm.
How many videos would you say now you're creating in that 1 hour block?
Oh, I'm doing. I could fire off a ton. If I'm getting out 5 or 10 videos per day, I mean, I think it's a function of what's the goal, right? What I found is that the response rate on a video is significantly higher. If I'm getting out 10 videos per day, I should be seeing at least a 10% response rate on those. And I think it's actually much higher. So if that 10 videos a day generates a handful of conversations 5 days a week, I think that is more than enough. This is another example where I don't think the bar is astronomically high. I think if you're getting out 5 prospecting videos per day, sure, there might be some managers out there that say, we want you to do 50 dials and 50 videos a day. But I think the video is such a higher percentage shot that, particularly when you're starting out, if you're getting out 5 or 10 a day over the course of a few months, you are without a doubt going to be generating more conversations, and you'll have enough reps where I think you feel really natural in terms of firing these off and getting higher quantity.
So you're starting off a lot of these conversations with video. Do you continue to use video without throughout these cadences and throughout these communications, or do you kind of stop at one point, reintroduce? Where are you using video?
I think
Out of curiosity.
it's pretty consistent. I have it. It's funny, when we tested this, I didn't see a ton of activity as email number one. You starting off with video, just because I think they have no idea who you are, and generally speaking, I don't put a lot of text in my emails with video, right? Because what I'm trying to do is get them to click. So it's not a, here's what we can do for you. Here's 3 bullet points. Here's a link to a case study and a video. A lot of times when I'm introducing video, it's like one line on why I think you're interested, and here's the video. And so I found that that didn't particularly work as an opening email. They have no idea who I am, and it's pretty brief. So I'm layering it in usually as a second or third email follow up. I will also at some point kind of break the cadence and send it as a one-off email, not replying into a thread. I like to mix it up as having at least one, which is maybe just a video of me talking, versus one that's either showing their property or their LinkedIn or my product, like we discussed. So I'm layering it in throughout the process, usually not as the first step. But yeah, it's consistent throughout our process.
Keeping everyone on their toes. I like it. They'll never
Yeah,
know what kind of communication they'll get next,
yeah,
so they have to keep chatting.
yeah. And I also
um,
one of the things I like, I forgot this, going back to the integrations, is I think you guys, I don't know if you would call it an integration, but it's really easy now to push it into a LinkedIn message, which generally has been also a very low percentage shot for me. Like most people I talk to, like in mails, don't really resonate. But if you've already recorded the video, I don't see any reason why, if you don't get a response, you could push it through a different medium. I know that changing up the mediums through calls and social and email always drives response rates. So if you've invested the time to put the video out there, I think it makes sense to deliver it in multiple mediums.
what do you have to lose?
Yeah, exactly. You've already done the work. You might as well.
Increase the shot that they'll see it as well.
Mhm.
Um, is there anything else you'd like to speak to or share um, before we part ways?
No, I think this was a great conversation. I appreciate you having me on. If anyone wants to share ideas or have any other questions that we didn't get to today, you can find me here. If you're interested in Leonardo, we're hiring. If you want to join the sales team and push out some videos with me, we can talk about that as well.
I love it. Connor's LinkedIn is linked in this live, and we'll be pushing out more content with him soon. So, yeah, please connect. And thanks everyone for tuning in, taking part in the discussion. Connor, thanks for being here. We're going to go enjoy the sunny day that we have.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.